This is what I think of as being a kind of all-in-one pentatonics masterclass. Now, the problem, I think, with pentatonics is that when you learn box patterns, you get stuck in the box and you just meander up and down those patterns. And usually because of where your licks are as well. So, what we're going to do is we're going to leverage string pairs. There's a few other things that we're going to tap into as well. We're going to look at caged octave patterns because the way that guitar works is it's layers. Things overlay each other. Although I have this way of showing you how to use your pentatonics in this, what I call the 3 and 2 pattern, which is an easier way of breaking it down and being able to memorize where your root note is, because you need to know where your root note is so you can resolve your phrases and find your other notes as well. So the thing is, the secret to it all is string pairs. So we have a representation of the fretboard here on screen. You can see that we've got these different coloured strings. Now this ties into how the guitar is tuned in perfect fourth. So this is really, really important how you get into this stuff. So essentially, the E and the A string, what they do is they form what I call a string pair because they're tuned to a fourth, right? And if you don't know what the fourth is, if you think of the tune Here Comes the Bride, and we go like this, you can hear that that's happening in between the E and the A string. So here comes the bride. Here comes the bride. It's pretty low for my voice there. So what you can see on screen there, in that first neck diagram, you can see the blue pair of strings. So that is the E and the A string as Here Comes the Bride. Now the next one we get is the red pattern, which is the D and the G string. Now if I play these two notes for you, you'll hear Here Comes the Bride. It's in a different pitch. And I get the same thing. This is good for helping you with your tuning. And it's a useful tool to help you to be able to just go, is that in tune? Yes, it is. So we've got that red string pair there. And then moving on to this yellow string pair between the B and the E string, we get the same thing again. Here comes the bride. For sake of being complete with this, you can see there is another neck diagram there, and it's a purple and an orange one. The purple one, this is tuned to a perfect fourth, and this is what I call the subset of string pairs. So the blue, red, and yellow ones, those are the 3 main string pairs because they span the whole of the neck. But then I see the A and the D as being a subset, and I see the G and the B as being a subset. So there's actually 5 string pairs there if you want to think of it in that way. But the G and the B, that orange one, we don't use that because it's not tuned to a perfect fourth like the purple one. So you can hear there, we get Here Comes the Bride. But if I play the G to the B string, you'll hear that we don't get that. No, what we get is... So it's a good idea to have these little tunes that we all know associated in there. Let me just pop back here. So the string pairs, we are going to bridge over those with caged octaves. And you can see in the first diagram here, the first one we get is this E-shaped caged octave, yeah, because the way the octaves go, they follow the cage system. This one here is probably the most useful one because this E-shaped to D-shaped octave, it bridges us from the E and A string pair to the D and G string pair, and what happens is we end up getting the same note. So what do I mean by that? So say for instance we've got this G note here. I know that by using the caged octave going from the E shape, if I go from here, I go up 2 frets over 2 strings, I'm going to get exactly the same note. So if that's a G note, this is a G note. And you can hear it, it's an octave apart. If you want to think about the sound of an octave, it is hi-ho. Hi-ho. Or Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow. So we get that there. Now the next one, we're jumping from the E shape there into the D-shaped octave, which is next to it. And you can see that here, my third finger is on that D string there. So I'm bridging that string pair. I'm using these octaves to bridge it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this third finger, I'm going to put my first finger there instead, because I'm just using that as almost like a flag to point out where it is, just as a placeholder. So we've got that note, then we've got that note there. then what I do is I put that index finger on. Now, when we move from the D string to the B string to get into that yellow string pair there that you can see on the B and the E string, what we do is we have to add another fret because of the way that the guitar is tuned. That kink in the tuning means we have to compensate by adding another fret. Whereas the E-shaped octave goes up 2 frets and over 2 strings. This goes up 3 frets and over 2 strings. So it's always the same number of strings. So we add that extra one on there. And that gives us the other octave. Now, what we've essentially done is we've found the same note. So that's a G, that's a G, that's a G. And I said this was the E-shaped octave. This is the D-shaped octave. And I'm deriving that from the acronym CAGED. So C-A-G-E-D. I can go back to the beginning of that again, and it becomes a C-shaped octave. So that's going to be, because you see the C-shaped chord there? This is on the A string, and this puts me into the purple subset that you can see there, guys, the A-shaped octave, because it's on the A string, and that would be where we play an A shape. So we jump over. There's the A shape, which feeds into a G shape, E shape, D shape, C shape, A shape, G shape. Because that's a G shape, it joins back onto an E shape. And we just chase that note all the way across there. And this is one of the use cases that we have for these caged octaves. But what we're doing here is we're looking at these red dots as being root notes or tonics for our scale. Just regardless of applying it to pentatonics. If I wanted to take this idea here and just use it to play power chords. There's a G power chord. You're jamming with your buddy. Your buddy's there doing this. Now, you can double up and play exactly the same thing as him, but isn't that boring? You want to do something a little bit different. So if you take that idea there, that's being applied, a power chord on a string pair, because that's the cool thing with power chords is, play that power chord there, we play the power chord here. Now we're in a different voice. So if that's going on, hopefully you can hear this. I will set up my looper at some point. If this is going on like this, you can see I'm utilising exactly the same thing, but to the punter who doesn't know anything about music, it sounds like you're creating some sort of magical manifestation from nowhere. Look, take that over here. Same thing. So hopefully you get how that works. And like I say, it's not just for pentatonics. It can be for any idea that lives on this string pair. I like this one here. That's a 7th chord. And that's the way I like to play 7th arpeggios. Hopefully you can hear. It's the same thing. We get the same thing. So it's not just about this pentatonic, but I wanted to get into the pentatonic because the main thing is the problem that people encounter. I do my best to try and remember what it was like when I was a beginner and how I struggled. I don't have massive hands. I've got stumpy sausage fingers and quite a wide palm. I wish they were longer. I wish I had amazing thumbs and I could get it over the top like Larry Carlton. I struggled, so I have to adapt. This is what we have to do. We can still get the same sounds, but we have to adapt to get there. So the thing is, when we play the box pattern like this, that pinky always felt awkward for me there. It's not too bad here. But that always felt a little bit awkward. So, you know, was there an easy way to play that? Yes, there is. If we take any note on the E string here, and we look at it from this string pair, and we drop to the lower pitched note, all we need to do is subtract 5. This is 8, subtract 5 gives us 3. We find the same note. Ah, okay, so that's cool. Now what I could do is, so now I can go, I can play it like this. And that means no pinky. It's all right, no pinky. Brilliant, okay. But that note there, hang on, if I drop that down, it lives there now. So what I get is Now, this pattern has been done to death on YouTube, but the thing that I never ever see done is how it is applied to string pairs and how the caged octaves are the way that we use to bridge across with this. So caged octaves, string pairs, that's the crux of everything today. It's just a tool to get to the pentatonics and play them in a non-box pattern way. Now the cool thing is, really, these are all just segments of our box patterns, and the way that I see these is having two components. We have a leg and we have a rectangle. What do I mean by this? If we look at the minor pentatonic, what we end up with, there's a rectangle. If I put that rectangle over there, that's what I see there. I'm looking at that, I'm seeing that rectangle. I'm noticing where the red dot is there, because that's actually the root note for the scale. This is an A minor pentatonic, and this whole lesson is going to be based around the note A. I know I demonstrated the octaves there in G, but I'm going to do this in A because that's where most people play guitar at first, in A. So A minor, but we're going to do A major as well. A major pentatonic. So essentially what we end up with here is that rectangle, and then this is what I call the leg. So it's rectangle and leg. Hopefully that's not too strange an idea to put in your head. We've got that rectangle, I've got that leg there, and this gives us the pentatonic. I'll put that leg back there. Remember that root note there, this position here where that red note is, that's the 5th fret. That's your 5th fret just there. So this is going to be fret 3, fret 5, fret 3, fret 5. We just walk with our fingers. The way our hands are composed, and if I can say the word, anatomically, ooh, did it. The way that our hands are made up, we have tendons that come down here, and we have tendons that go across. And when you look at them, if you've ever seen any of these dissections, these gruesome autopsy things where somebody's donated the body, these look like A shapes. But the strap ones that go across here, they affect how wide you can stretch, but they also form something that I call the ligament rub. So if you move one finger down, can you see? So if you hold your hand out like this, I want you to be aware of this, because this is actually really quite big, this idea, because this is your preliminary source of feedback when you are practicing. When we play and practice guitar, the first thing isn't necessarily how it sounds or what it looks like, it's how it feels. And we experience that through our hands. So this is critical that you understand what is going on with the machine that is your hand. If I hold my hand like this, and I could hold it sideways, and you can see that when I pull that first finger down towards the middle of my palm, yeah, have a go at this and you'll see how much movement you have there. Can you see it's pulling the second finger with it? Look, the second finger wants to go with it because they're attached by that ligament. But you'll notice that the third finger and the pinky are unaffected. So those make what I call an independent walking pair, or just a walking pair. When you're playing your scales, this is a good way to think of how you use your fingers. Now if I try the middle finger, can you see that the middle finger wants to pull the ring finger down, and it's pulling a little bit on this finger. So this finger affects both of these. It seems to affect the third finger more for me, yeah, but the pinky doesn't affect at all. Yeah, so that middle finger does that. Now if I do the ring finger, pull it down, can you see which fingers it's affecting? It's pulling down on the middle finger and the pinky finger there. So it's pulling down on those, but it's not affecting the index finger. So this is what we're looking out for. So the third and the first finger, those guys are independent. And that's what I mean by a walking pair. And this is a good way of organizing your fingers, much like learning to play piano. You can only learn to play piano if you can get the fingerings correct. That's the secret to playing piano. If you use the wrong fingerings and you can't cross over your scales and everything, then you're going to struggle. You're never going to reach that point that you want. And there's a similar thing goes on with your fingers, and it's really useful to understand the anatomy of your hand in this sort of way of thinking about it. You can see the pinky, the last one, the pinky. Can you see how the pinky wants to pull down my ring finger? So you've got to do that. Right, but if I pull down on the index, it doesn't affect the pinky. So these are a good walking pair. These are a good walking pair. And in fact, these are a good walking pair. And sometimes people play scales like that. I've seen people play a major scale using fingers 2 and 3 there. much prefer to use that walking pair there because I like bluesy stuff. That's the way I think of it. It's important to get your fingers right. Anybody play golf? If you can't get your swing right, you can't hit the ball right. So it's really important to get this stuff so that you understand it. And if you understand what's going on with your hands, then you can probably figure out where the mistakes are coming from. You can think to yourself, hang on, I'm feeling this discomfort in between using these two fingers. I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody. Some people can use fingers 1 and 2. There's some players that just use 3 fingers. I think it's good to use your pinky as well, especially if you've got stumpy sausages, because you need as much as you can get hold of, really. Hopefully that makes sense with the anatomy of the hand, because you can only work with what you've got. Some people do say, Ricky has suffered an industrial injury and these 2 fingers are frozen. Then you're going to have to re-engineer your way around it like Django Reinhardt did, you know, and that guy was a virtuoso, had a bad accident and ended up being a virtuoso again. There's no excuses. I will say small hands. We've all seen that video with those Taiwanese kids where there's 8 of them all in a row, coordinatedly playing some classical piece, and it's magnificent. They're like 4 years old. If you're an adult and you're moaning about having small hands, then you've no excuses. There's no reason. You have to make sure and be aware of where the tension is, because tension is the thing that disrupts flow, and flow is everything. When you're being creative and you're practicing, and if this is you as well, because this is what happens to me when I practice, and this is why I've always been obsessed with the guitar, is when I'm practicing, I get lost. I disappear. I'm not here on the planet anymore. I'm in the guitar. I'm one with the music. I'm just part of it. I'm on a different plane. And this is what we're all trying to get to. And when you see somebody on stage and they're playing and you know that they're in that flow, that's really inspiring. Okay, so essentially what we're doing here, we've got a rectangle and a leg. If I take this note here, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to bridge the octave, and that finds me the root note of that scale again, which means that I can transfer this whole pattern. Let's move that. You can see that if I go from there, I've got exactly the same pattern, but it's on a different string pair. It's on a string pair an octave up. Now I said we were going to do this in A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the pattern. Rectangle, leg. We've got rectangle, leg. Jump over to the octave there. And you can see we get rectangle, leg. And this portion here, you might even look at that and think, oh, hang on, that lives inside my box 1. Now, a way for you to actually memorize this as well and to have some feedback of whether you are playing it correctly is to know how it feels is correct. You're using the correct fingerings. If I try it, like I said, with... that feels awkward to me because I can feel those ligaments rubbing. But if I use this walking pair here, that's fine. Yeah, so I know kinesthetically that it's correct. But if I've got a PDF, then I can follow the diagram and go, yeah, that's correct. So I have a visual representation that I can rely on. Okay, so the next thing I need is to know what it sounds like. And I always think that this is the tune for Starry, Starry Night. So minor pentatonic going from this note here. This is the flat 7 up to the root. Starry, Starry Night. If you know that one. Now if I play it down here in the original position that I played. So I'm using that. That's one string pair. Jump up into the next string pair. Up into the next string pair there. Now, using my octaves. And you can hear it's the same theme. It's still Starry, Starry Night. Hopefully everybody's getting that one. You know that tune. What we're going to remember though is the minor pentatonic is root, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7. So that's 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 equals pentagram. So really what we're doing is we're redistributing those notes. Instead of it being a box pattern like this, what we're doing is we're redistributing it to be on a string pair. So we're starting on the flat 7 to get that rectangle and leg. Rectangle, leg. Now, the thing to note here is, because of that way that octave jumps there, it can be very easy to get lost and then play a fret too low when you move over. Because you've played it, look at that, it puts you in the correct position. When you play the rectangle, there, you're on the 7th fret, and on the 5th fret, it's in the same fret pattern here, which is part of that minor pentatonic. Right? So when we do come up here, some people automatically think it's going to do the same thing, but it isn't. So you have to compensate by moving up a fret. And look at the distance we're covering on the fretboard there. We're right down here, this low note, and we're doing this high note up here. So we're developing the voices that are available to us on the neck instead of being stuck in that range there. That's your lowest note in a box pattern 1. That's your highest note. Now you've got a bit more range to express yourself, a wider palette of sounds that you can tap into. Like I was showing you here before, I'll just pull this over here and just show you what was going on there. Just going to borrow this note here and a bridge into that one there just to show you where that lives. So if I just place that on there, I get exactly the same pattern. I think that's pretty cool. But what we can also do with this is people tend to think that I've got to learn my pentatonics, but then I've got to learn my blues scales. And you might see them as being two completely unconnected things, but they aren't, because really the minor blues scale is an addition. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put this extra note in here. Now this is going to be crucial for helping you to make phrases. Phrases equal solos so that you can come up with something coherent when you're improvising. Here we've got this rectangle, but then the leg becomes filled there. We've got this chromatic business going on here. And this is going to do exactly the same thing. So it's going to go. Now notice I played the pattern a little bit different there. Before I used my walking pair, fingers 1 and 3. But what I do is, because I know I'm coming up here and I'm going to use 3 fingers on this bit here, I slide this first finger up. So I go. And now I get my minor blues scale. Move over, compensate. That gives you a little bit more mileage out of that minor pentatonic. But the thing is that minor and major, they're polar opposites to each other. If you think about a major chord, sounds happy. That's what we associate it with. A minor chord sounds sad. Yeah? So we need both tonalities. We need both moods. And we can use this same string pair, caged octaves, but we can also use the rectangle and leg idea to play major pentatonics as well. And sometimes people do the minor pentatonic, but the thing is we've got to associate it with the major pentatonic as well. We're going to do this in the key of A, and at the moment that red dot there, this one is the root, so that would be the root note for that scale there, so that would be an A major pentatonic. Now a little bit of gold here, if you know my video with the L7 grid, I'll leave out the diminished on purpose because we don't want that just confusing stuff. You'll know that chords 1, 4 and 5 are major triads, and you'll know that chords 2, 3 and 6 are minor triads. If you want the ultimate cheat code, really, you can just play the appropriate major or minor pentatonic over the top of that. So if you've got a major chord, you can attach a major pentatonic to it. I'll show you that towards the end once I get through all this. So the thing is, you don't have to learn oodles and oodles of scales, tons and tons of scales. You don't, because you can apply most of this to this. Add these extra colours, like the flat 5 that I added with that minor pentatonic there to turn it into a minor blues. We could do that same thing here. You can see we have the A major pentatonic, and how I think about it, we start on the leg and then we move up into the rectangle. So leg into rectangle, that's the way we're looking at it there, guys. Leg into rectangle. Let me just play that one. We're in A. Now if I bridge that octave over there, that's the A. Who recognises that? Watch out for that compensation there, look. So I'm moving from the first string pair sneakily ended on a minor there. So look, I can play that there on that. On the 7th chord. Equally, I can play it on a major chord. So look. So hopefully, you might start to see a little bit more mileage out of this. You can use this to fill in between your chords. This is really cool. I get quite excited when I think about it, a bit giddy, because it's really easy. It's a rectangle and a leg, but it's knowing where to put it, and that's where string pairs and the caged octaves come into play. I'll show you where the root note moves to an octave up. So this is an A here, yeah, this one. If I play this note here, that's an A as well, because what we've done is we've gone up an octave onto the next string pair. We've bridged the string pairs with an octave. I'll leave that one there, and then I'll just overlap this business here. I'll just take that and I'll bang it there. So we've got the leg, and we've got the rectangle. How cool is that? And that means because that's coming from the D string, if we think about cage chords and we think to ourselves, okay, I've got a D here. Now we've got to be careful here, because of the kink in the tuning. So we can link these patterns to our chords. This is a cool thing about the cage system. Look, this is a D chord. I'm just playing these 3 strings. I'm just playing the G, the B, and the E strings. So if I play this here, there's the D chord. If I move it up a whole step, what I get is an E chord. Brilliant. And I should be able to hear my girl. Linking that to an E. Ties into your chord shapes as well. But what we have also got with this one is this extra note, this green note here. Now I can add this to the pattern as well. So we've gone, and we end up with this little chromatic fill-in. Nice and easy, because it's finger 1, finger 2, finger 3. Now, there's lots of different ways we can treat that, and I did want to touch upon this. It's something that a lot of people do with the flat 5 in the minor pentatonic. If I take the minor pentatonic again, and remember, Starry, Starry Night. What most people do with that flat 5, and I want you to do this, I want you to be mindful of this. So this is something that when you pick up your guitar next time to play these pentatonics, you're going to not just pass through that flat 5 in that. We've got the flat 7, root, flat 3rd, 4th, flat 5, 5 in that minor pentatonic. You're not just going to pass through that note, you're going to maybe start on it, use it to slide to another note, jump over a note. And that gives you a bit more expression. Instead of it just becoming a passing note, it becomes an auxiliary note. And we can actually do the same thing with this major pentatonic. So we've gone to go leg, got the leg, and then we've got the rectangle up here. We're going to fill it in with that extra note. It's an off note. If you want to know what scale degrees we've got here, I'll tell you the names of the major pentatonic as we go. So it's got root, 2nd, 3rd, then we get the 5th, then we get the 6th. So what happens is we're putting a flat 3rd in here. So that means we've got 2 thirds, which we shouldn't really, but it works. So root, 2nd, flat 3rd, 3rd. Yeah? Now if we do the same thing here that we were doing, instead of just passing through the note, use it as a little auxiliary note. It can be really soulful if you do it that way. And you can find that sometimes the major blues is kind of uplifting. Blues was my first love when I picked up the guitar. The whole reason I picked up the guitar was I watched a film called Crossroads with Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid lad, and Steve Vai's in it as well. But there was a song, and they're in this barn, and he's playing blues, and he said, blues ain't nothing but a good man feeling bad, or something like that. And I felt like that. And that sound is the whole sound that's guided me throughout wanting to learn to play guitar. That's my catalyst moment. I talk about my catalyst moment. You will have a catalyst moment that made you want to pick up the guitar in the first place. So when I learned to play those bluesy lines and things, I realised it wasn't just minor blues, it's major blues. And they are two different sides of the same thing. When we play a minor blues, if I play an A7 chord here, I can put this minor on. It's a bit self-pitying. Whereas, not all heartbreak is bad, if we want to think about blues as being associating it with relationships and that kind of thing. Because sometimes, it's not the things we've lost, it's the fact that we had that thing. And we can reflect that in music, because music isn't really just about one thing, is it? It's almost like remembering how good times were when you were with a person or something. I'm going back to my first love. That's why that film struck a thing. My first love broke up with me, and I was devastated. And the blues just hit home really hard, and that's the reason why I picked up a guitar, because of that film. So it's not so pitying as the minor blues. So you've got essentially two opposite colours that you can use then to express yourself. And I'm playing the same chord here with this. That's an A7, so if you're playing a blues, and this is kind of the secret as well, if you want to think about it, in mixing your sounds, mixing major and minor pentatonics. And this is an approach you can take. It's quite a simple approach if you want to think about it. If we take that there, that A7, yeah, that's a major pentatonic. Same chord. But it's a different way of improvising over the top of that. Went off on a tangent there. Just keep it simple. Pentatonic with an extra note, you're going to get a blues scale. Major pentatonic with a flat third, add that, you get the major blues scale. Yeah, because people talk about the minor blues scale all the time. Less known is this major blues, and I think it's important. But they are not too far away from each other. The way I see things is, if you think about the chords in a minor key, and you've seen my lesson on synonyms, how actually everything is all the same thing. The synonym value, you need to understand that the chords in the key of A minor are the same chords that are in the key of C major. Because there's a duality to key. The same thing applies with your scales. That's all modes are. If we play the C major scale but we start on a D, we're playing Dorian. There's just another name for it. Now I know that can be a little bit confusing because it sounds a bit different. But the thing I want you to understand is that if I play this, and I'll demonstrate, this is my root note, yeah, for my scale. My tonic, if you will, for my scale. Now if I start here, I can play my minor pentatonic there. But if I move that pattern down here and play an F sharp, start on an F sharp, that's the relative minor of A major. That's chord 6, that would be F sharp minor. So I go like this, play the same pattern. Yeah? Play that there. It's the same pattern. But if I start just on the A, if I play that there, can you hear my girl? Hang on, I'll lose the flat 3. I'll play it in the pattern that I just showed you. This major pentatonic, this minor pentatonic, they are in inversions of each other, which is why we end up with those 3 notes in a row. We're going to play it as that really belongs to C major blues. Yeah? Yeah? And I did want to talk about the L7 grid, which is actually in the book as well. You can faff around all you want with the cycle of fifths to try and find out what key you're in. But the thing is, if you know what key you're in, all you need to do is just use the L7 grid. I have a whole rant about the cycle of fifths. It has its place, but really, when it comes to playing guitar, the cycle of fifths doesn't live on the guitar, but the L7 grid does. The reason I call it L7 is these blue ones here, that's an L, and that's a 7. I'm a visual person, what can I say? That looks like an L and a 7 stacked on top of each other. The red ones, these are our major chords. And then what we've got is minor chords here. Super. Now, the cool thing is that this will move. I'm just going to change the colour. I'm going to change it to black there. That's your tonic. So at the minute, the note that is on is your key. So that's on a G right now. So that's the key of G major. Follow this pattern. Let me move it down here. There's the key of F. There's the key of E. There's the key of F sharp, G flat. There's the key of G. There's the key of A flat. I'm just moving that around. Just notice. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're there. That's living on a string pair. L7 is movable. It's completely transposable. So it says, okay, what key are we playing in today? We're playing in the key of F sharp. There's my F sharp. Right, okay, so I know I've got chord 1, major, chord 4, major, chord 5, major. Right, wonderful. And the singer says, oh guys, I can't sing in that key. You go, all right, what's your key? What's your best key? He says, oh, B flat. And you go, all right, okay. So you go A, B flat. And you say to the singer, is that better? He goes, yes, absolutely. The L7 can be moved to the next string pair. Hang on, let me just put my face in here for impact. Do you see the gold in this, guys? This is it. It's not as hard as you think it needs to be. Think about it. The L7 can be moved through the string pairs. It tells you where your chords are. It tells you where your scales are and your arpeggios are. We've only got 3 elements of pitch: chord, scales, arpeggios. Add rhythm, add a bit of creativity, a little bit of heartbreak, a bit of joy and happiness. You've got songs. That's how it works. It's really simple. L7 is the secret, but you can extend L7 by using string pairs and your caged octaves. There's lots of things and they all sit upon each other, but there's also 7/7. It's on my channel. And that's 2 of the main grids. I have another 2 grids that I use as well, because it's helpful to visualize things in different ways so that you can break up the patterns that you play that are predictable and become boring. And then you end up in a rut. We don't want to be stuck in a rut. The difference between a rut and a grave is the depth. And that's the thing, because a rut will lead to a grave for your idea, your concept in your head of being a guitar player. And your dream dies, and that breaks my heart. That's why I'm here. Let me just dig into this again with the L7 grid. It's easy to extend. And it's really simple, because if we think of octaves, the root note and an octave are the same note. An octave is 8. 1 less than 8 is 7. So 7 is always going to be 1 fret lower. That's 7, that major 7. It's always going to be there. However, this one here, this is 6. So I need to take that, copy it, and just put it 1 step up. This is extending the L7 grid just so that you know where the minor 7 flat 5s are. So you know where your diminished 7ths are. Because if you play blues and jazz, you'll need those sounds. If you play pop and rock, chances are you won't, unless you're delving into the realms of Yngwie Malmsteen and harmonic minor, which is another story. But the thing is, I put that on there and it starts to become confusing. It's not as easy to see as this shape here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. This is chord 1, this is chord 4, this is chord 5. I'm going to play chord 1. Let's do this in the key of A. Chord 1. Because this is major, I take that note there, right, and I put the leg on it, put the rectangle, and then look. And I've got my accompanying scale that goes with that chord. Here's chord 4. This is a major chord, so we're going to use that major pentatonic again. We're on a subset. Do you remember I said about the subset string pairs at the beginning? Here. So you can hear. And I can do it on chord 5 as well. Yeah? So this is taking care of chords 1, 4, and 5. Let's look at this. Chord 6. Because I know this is my root note. I know that my flat 7's here, so I'm going to go down there. It's a little bit trickier to see because it doesn't start on the root note, it starts on the flat 7. So I know I'm going to do rectangle, leg. Yeah, now. Yeah, and then we go. Look at that. That's chord 2, chord 3, chord 6, chord 2. We play the minor pentatonic on top of that. There's the root note, drop down a whole step. We can put that on there. So we can apply this to the grid. I'm giving away all my secrets here, guys. Why? I don't want to gatekeep them. I want to give them to you. I want you to learn guitar. I want you to recommend my channel. Share this video with somebody.